Let us talk about something about the resource management. Actually, when we talk about the resource management, it refers to the efficient and sustainable use of natural So, hello students. We have started talking about the resource management. Um, when we talk about the management of anything, particularly here we are talking about the resource. So it means it refers to the efficient and sustainable use of whether it is natural or human resources or economic resources that should meet the needs without compromising the ability for the future generations. Means we are not cutting down the needs of the future generation, and we are also enjoying the resources at the same pace, which may lead to the sustainability of the resources. For this purpose, when we talk about the sustainability, it involves various planning, development, and controlling the use of resources or over exploitation of the resources. We may talk about over exploiting water, particularly for the agriculture purpose, irrigation purpose, flooding the field, not using very much, we can say, advanced technologies, what we are having like drip irrigation, sprinkler irrigation, etc. Even using about of the resources of forest, land, minerals, energy, human labor, everything. It should be used in a very much efficient and controlled manner in order to have its sustainability in the future, so that it balances environmental sustainability also, economic development also, and also the social equity. In today's world, where we are going through the era of various resources scarcity and also the environmental degradation, which is the growing concern of the days, effective resource management becomes necessary, and it becomes more critical if we compare it from the previous or from the few decades before. Climate change, particularly, or even we can say deforestation or population growth and industrialization, are putting immense pressure on the planet's finite resources. There are resources already we have discussed in our lecture series, renewable and non-renewable resources. Some resources we are having very much limited. Although the renewable resources, if we are using it at a very faster rate, its replacement rate may vary and it may lead to crisis also. So as a result, the government, business, communities are increasingly now focusing on resource management strategies that minimizes the waste of the resources, which also reduces its environmental impact and promotes long-term sustainability. If we talk about, there are several types of resource management, if I would say, and about some of the resource management step I would also like to talk here. Like if we talk about natural resource management, it particularly focuses on managing The land, water, soil, plants, animal means all of the natural resources what we are having in our environment. If we talk about the human resource management, how to manage the human resource means dealing with the optimal use and development of particularly the human skills and labors. If we talk about the financial and economic resource management, it involves managing economic funds, different budgets in the different sectors, economic assets, etc. Very much important here, I would like to talk about energy resource management, which is in crisis also, and it is said in future it is going to be depleted also. So concern is with managing energy consumption, promoting certain other alternative sources of energy, and renewable energy sources can also lead to energy resource management. So overall, the resource management, we can say it plays a very important role in achieving particularly the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, for which every nation is talking about. Even in India, the certain SDG goals have been have been taken off with serious concern in order to achieve these goals in specific time periods. Especially these goals are related to the clean water, climate action, sustainable cities, and responsible consumption. Conclusively, it can be said that resource management is not just a technical or administrative task. It is very much important part for ensuring overall environmental health, not only overall environmental health, but the economic prosperity and social well-being for current and future generations.
Hello, ma'am. I have a question, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am. I have a question, ma'am.
yes, yes.
Ma'am, could you please familiarize us with the strategies which we can adapt for the sustainable resource management?
Okay. So you are talking about the strategies which have been implemented and formulated for the sustainable resource management. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, uh, before mentioning the several strategies, actually, let us talk about uh, integrated resource management, because whenever we talk about the resource management, just managing a single resource will not fulfill the goals or saving our resources, but it needs integrated resource management. Actually, what does the integrated resource management means? When we talk about the integrated resource management, it is a coordinated approach that considers the complex interactions between the land, water, air, and various living organisms. So we are going to work in integration for all these aspects, whether we are talking about the land, air, water, or various living organism. Particularly here, the goal lies for the sustainable resource management, that is for the balanced development and also for the environmental conservation. Means if we are saving the resources, or if we are formulating certain strategies for sustainable resource management, a balance should be maintained, not only just saving the resources, but a balance should be maintained with the development also, and also with the environmental conservation. Talking about some of the strategies, as you have asked, multi-stakeholder planning may be formulated that should bring the government, the industry, the indigenous group, various non-governmental organization, various environmental organization, and public all together to have a multi-stakeholder planning. Not only this, even using nowadays, we are very much familiar with use of GIS and even the modeling in order to understand what are the long-term impacts and guide or how we can have the particular sustainable resource use. These models may provide various pathways that how we can use the certain resources in more sustainable manner. For example, if we talk about the Canada's forestry sector, the integrated resource management, it particularly helps to manage the timber harvest alongside the conservation of wildlife habitats and also for the recreational areas. Meaning it is mainly complying to the several sectors, means development sector also through the recreational areas and tourism sector. It also employing to the conservation of the environment through the conservation of wildlife, and also we can say harvesting was going through, so we can talk about the economic development also. Many times while managing their resources, we also talk about efficient use of resources. What does the efficient use of resources mean? Using resources in a way that minimizes the waste. Means it extends their life cycle. Means we are using the full efficiency of the resources or whatever the potential it has. So using the resources in a way that minimizes the waste and extending the life cycle of the resources, maximizing even the economic and environmental benefits. That can be termed as efficient use of resources. For such things, certain strategies can be adopted. For example, here we can take energy efficiency, using just LED lighting, efficient machinery, and insulation that may reduce the consumption of energy use. So here we are extending the life cycle, or we are efficiently using the energy. If we take example of water conservation, we know lots of water usages, particularly in irrigation sector. For example, just flooding the field for the irrigation purpose, lot of waste of water is being observed. For this, we can utilize drip irrigation in farming. Even the grey water can be reused for different purposes, for building, construction, etc. Even if we take example of similar way waste minimization, using certain manufacturing byproducts, recycling them, reconstructing them, reusing them, this will minimize the waste. For example, here we would like to talk about the smart agricultural uses we can say here IoT sensors in order to optimize water and fertilizer use, improving crop yields, and for even reducing the inputs. So these are the some of the strategies how we can adopt in order to have efficient use of various resources. One of the very important strategies I would also like to hear tell about, that is the environmental protection and restoration. When we talk about sustainable resource management, it becomes very much important to also protect the environment. So what actually the environmental protection and restoration means minimizing overall environmental damage and actively restoring the ecosystems which have been already degraded or exploited, in the era of, particularly in the overexploitation in the era of economic development. For this, several strategies can be adopted. For example, EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment, which is required for the large scale projects like mining, dam construction, etc. So that actively the ecosystem can be restored, and if it has been degraded or exploited, it can be restored again. Similarly, strategies like rehabilitation can work a lot, restoring the mining sites, even by planting or having some economic activities like fishing activities or planting the native education. This can work a lot. Similarly, the protection of biodiversity by establishing protected areas or wildlife corridors can also help, and it can also minimize environmental damage. For example, if we take example of oil sand companies in Alberta that require to restore the disturbed land to a self-sustaining ecosystem after extraction. So working on this particular purpose. So this is also one of the very important strategy. Another strategy which is very much related to the government sector, like policy implementation, formulation of certain laws and regulation, where the government play a very important role in setting various rules, policies, frameworks that guide the sustainable development. For example, if we talk about some of the strategies here, the legislation, laws like Clean Water Act, if we talk about forest stewardship, if we talk about council certification or carbon pricing. These are few of the very major step which plays important role in guiding the sustainable development. Not only this, many times the incentives provided by the government, like in tax credit for the renewable energy or even subsidies for sustainable farming, etc., that can work a lot. Not only this, through the different governments of the different countries, international cooperation, the agreements, like if we talk about the Paris Climate Accord or UN Sustainable Development Goals, this can also help a lot by for formulating certain laws and regulations overall that should be followed by the different nations. For if we talk about the European Union's Green Deal includes strict emission targets and investments in green technologies. So here policy and regulation and certain policy implementation becomes very much necessary whenever we talk about sustainable resource management. Not only this, community involvement becomes very much important. At an individual level, each and every one should be aware about the repercussion of the overexploitation of the resources, and why it is very much necessary now to save these resources, to manage these resources. This awareness should be in every individual. The people who are directly affected by the resource development should be involved, particularly in the planning sector, and which will benefit the particular area. If we talk about certain strategies like free, prior, or informed concept that is FPIC for the indigenous communities can work a lot. Not only this, the public consultation for infrastructure or mining projects can also work a lot. Not only this, several education programs should be initiated teaching sustainable farming, waste management, or energy saving practices can work a lot in sustainable resource management. Not only this, we can have various examples like in Kenya, Community Forest Association co-manage forest resources with government support, ensuring sustainable use and even the economic benefit. In the same series of sustainable resource management, uh, adoption of clean technology becomes very much important, and we are seeing that several nations are adopting this green and clean technologies, using innovative tools and processes which reduces the environmental impacts of the certain resource exploitation, and even which increases the sustainability of resources, is the particular goal of adoption of clean technologies. For example, adoption of renewable energy, particularly which is more environmental friendly, like wind, solar, hydro, geothermal that reduces the dependence upon the fossil fuels. That will increase the sustainability of various resources. Not only this, use of various clean mining techniques, example bioleaching, or even we can say electric mining vehicles can be used during these activities, which are more eco-friendly. Even the construction should be more eco-friendly using green materials, solar panels, and energy efficient designs should be there. Examples, if we talk about Tesla's gigafactories, which use solar energy and recycling systems to reduce the environmental footprint. So by having these strategies, we can sustainably manage the resources. But for overall adopting these strategies, another very important strategy is required, that is monitoring and evaluation of the resources. Keeping track of the resource usages, what are its environmental impact, effectiveness of policies that should be ensured in continuous manner through the monitoring and evaluation. There should be certain sustainability indicators like carbon footprint, water usages, biodiversity index. Even many times the satellite monitoring can help a lot to monitor the rate of deforestation, illegal mining activities, fishing activities, air pollution, etc. Even the third party audits also can help to monitor the environment and social assessment by several neutral experts. Here we can take a very good example of the Global Reporting Initiative, GRI, which provides the standards for companies to report the sustainability performance. So overall, these are a few of the strategies which can help a lot to manage the resources in a sustainable way. आगे पूछेगा या फिर कंटिन्यू करूं? ये पूछेगा.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I have a question. What was the role of climate change in Wayanad landslides? Uh, ex- uh, Excuse me, ma'am. You are not audible, ma'am. You are not audible.
Okay. Okay, Sahib, you wanted to ask the role of climate change in Wayanad landslide. Am I right? Am I audible?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So as we know that Wayanad is a very beautiful district, which is particularly nested by the western Ghats of Kerala, and it is becoming increasingly a hotspot, particularly for the natural disaster. We have seen a few of the intermittent disasters in previous decades also, especially the landslides. While this region has always been geologically sensitive due to its steep terrain and heavy rainfall condition in this region, the growing impacts of the climate change have significantly, I would like to say here, worsened its vulnerability. The uh, Intensification of extreme weather events, if I must talk about, particularly the erratic and high intensity of rainfall in this region, has made this region more prone to the landslides, more frequent and more devastating. So, while discussing the role of climate change in Wayanad landslide, we have seen that over the past few decades, Kerala is experiencing a marked shift in its overall climatic patterns. If we see to its data from the IMD, that is the Indian Meteorological Department, and various other climatic studies, the state has even recorded an increase in the extreme rainfall events, often which is localized, and it is very much torrential in nature and sudden. In Wayanad, this translates into cloudburst, I must say, or even we can say intense torrential rainfall over short duration, means heavy rainfall for the short duration, which particularly leads to the soil saturation and also slope failure. And overall, as it is having the steep terrain, the fragile laterite soil and steep gradients of the Wayanad are particularly very much susceptible to such condition, which results in the frequent landslides, I must say here. Additionally, if we see the rising average temperature and the erratic monsoon patterns, particularly we know India is one of the major countries having the monsoon rainfall, but due to the certain climatic changes, rising average temperature and erratic monsoon patterns, this also contributes a lot to the ecological stress in this particular region. When rainfall patterns becomes unpredictable, the natural drainage capacity of the soil or vegetation is, if it is disturbed through the construction activities, deforestation activities, and when the dry spells are followed by the sudden heavy rainfall, which particularly destabilizes the soil structure, which is open due to the deforestation, it increases the likelihood of the landslide. So various factors are integrated here, means certain human induced factors, climate change, that all together that leads that make this region more susceptible to the landslide. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that also highlighted such mountainous tropical regions are highly vulnerable to the climate induced hazards, and Wayanad is one of the prime example if we see to the Intergovernmental Panel Climate Change highlights. So a very good example here for such susceptible zones we can give to the Wayanad. Even Wayanad has also observed various human-induced vulnerabilities also. Although climate change is playing a catalytic role, but whenever we talk about human activities, they have significantly intensified the landslide risk in this region. The widespread deforestation, particularly for the commercial plantation in Wayanad region, for tourism activities, for the infrastructure development, even for certain housing projects, this has led to the vast devastation of the natural vegetation. The forest covers have been reduced, particularly the native species of the trees that have reduced, which played a very important role in binding the soil and absorbing excess of water. So their removal also leaves the slopes very much exposed to the heavy rainfall and make it unstable. Further, if I must say that exacerbating the issue in practice of unregulated construction, many times illegal construction, quarrying activities on the hill slopes, road construction into the hills without proper geotechnical analysis, and even we can say human expansion of the settlements into particularly to the ecologically sensitive zones that have all increased the exposure of life and property to the landslide hazards in Wayanad region. So the replacement of even the biodiversity rich native forest, particularly with the monoculture plantation such as eucalyptus plantation or acacia, is contributing to the soil degradation and loss of slope stability. So these are, we can say, some of the reasons and role of climate for the Wayanad landslide. If we talk about certain mitigation and adaptation strategies for such type of disaster, so here the mitigation of landslide risk, particularly about the Wayanad, it requires a combination of different strategies like ecological, engineering, social, and policy-based approaches are required. Reforesting using the native species, particularly that can help to restore the slope stability, while banning quarrying in particularly ecologically sensitive zone. Unregulated construction should be banned in landslide prone zones, particularly it may reduce the risk of the landslide. At the same time, engineering solutions like retaining walls or proper drainage system and slope terracing can help to prevent soil movement in the vulnerable areas. The early warning system and weather monitoring through the real-time data and remote sensing will help to expand and provide the timely alerts, particularly which for the communities which are at risk. This must be accompanied by the community-based disaster preparedness plans and programs, education campaigns in order to build the local capacity and the awareness among the people. If we see on the government front, it becomes very much important to implement the recommendation of various environmental reports, such as if I here I would like to quote the about the Madhav Gadkil committee and the Kasturi Rangan report, both of which emphasized the protecting the ecologically sensitive zones of this area, the Western Ghats, through the sustainable development and also through the ecological zoning. So overall, integrating traditional ecological knowledge, especially that of the tribal communities who have coexisted with the forest for the centuries, that will also enhance the local resilience and it will also foster inclusive environmental stewardship. So, the growing frequency and even the intensity of the landslides in the Wayanad stand a very stark reminder, I can say, for the passing challenges that is posed by the climate change, which is compounded by the unstable human activities. As the climate continues to change, we know Wayanad and similar ecologically sensitive regions have to adopt certain proactive, integrated, and inclusive approach to disaster risk reduction. So, balancing development with environmental protection is not only possible, but it is the essential and need of the hour. So, the path generally followed or path forward lies in the building resilience through nature based solutions, even by making strong policy implementation, and even by having active community participation will help a lot.